Ruby, who's the president of Leeds Trinity Students' Union, and ask her to share her insights on what the universities can do in the post-pandemic period to help economic recovery.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everyone. I'm very fortunate to be here today, not only as a Students' Union president, but also as a current student, and give you an insight into what it is from a governor's perspective, a trustee perspective, and also someone who has tried to study through the pandemic and also live on campus. Something that will probably be very insightful for a lot of people involved. It's definitely been a difficult year. I think looking at it from multiple perspectives makes it easier for me. I can see how strategic and operational discussions go on, whereas for most students, they don't get that insight. What the other speakers have touched on this morning in terms of collaboration, we've obviously seen being massively important this year, and that moves towards the relationship management with our students. Student unions obviously usually bridge the gap between universities and their students anyway. We see that in terms of representation, academic voice, activities, welfare, and everything else that falls under their remit. It's something at Trinity, even as a small and specialised university, that we pride ourselves on. It's something that we feel we do very strongly. But this year we've made sure to work with all services possible within the university to bring every strength that we have together and support all of our students through this. You'll see that I've highlighted the financial and welfare implications of COVID-19. We're all very much aware of the fact that a lot of our students will now be out of work or working as key workers, so from the bottom end of the scale all the way to the top. They've voiced now that they feel like customers more than ever at their own universities and their own institutions, which is something that we'd like to move away from. And this isn't just subject to Leeds, this is across the nation. We've had a look at universities' marketing and how they've approached students, and certainly trying to get students to stay. The retention for this year we knew would be difficult, and also trying to pull in new students for next year who are still looking for the ordinary student experience. Obviously we know that it wasn't going to be close to what it usually is, but nonetheless all universities have tried, and their student unions, to deliver as much as they possibly can within a safe space. So whether that be at the beginning of the first term where everything was blended and we could still run partly physical and then still run our activities online as well, and the same with our education. But more than anything, it's highlighted to us a number of accessibility issues that we've had in previous years for certain students and certain demographics. So particularly those who are mature students, students with children, students with disabilities, BAME students, people who perhaps already had financial problems, who couldn't travel. And this is the information that we take forward to the upcoming academic years that we can use to create a strategy to make sure that all learning environments are inclusive, whether that still be blended online or whether that be purely physical. So I pulled up here collaboration, communication and conflict. The conflict might seem quite strong. That's not often conflicts between students and universities. It's the outset and the relationship of wider communities to students. We've seen in the media this year that students have been blamed for a large number of the COVID cases and the spreading, when actual fact, living on a campus and seeing the rest of the universities in the wider area, seeing that universities are putting things in place to make it as safe as possible, making sure that students can reach out, making sure they have the provision to apply for access for online learning if they can't make it physically. And we're seeing that this blended learning approach has changed from the first term to the second term, and it will now progress on to the third term. We're seeing how this can make a permanent difference in what we'll see in teaching from September onwards, and probably even for years to come. We're trying to find the easiest ways, the most accessible ways and the most effective ways to give that academic learning to our students, whilst also being value for money, which you'll have seen in the news this year, and also from student unions and student bodies themselves, them asking whether it's worth it to still return to university, regardless of whether they want that experience or not, knowing in hindsight that it was going to be different. The number one priority for them was getting their degree and getting the best marks possible. So you'll have seen collaboration not only with our university, Leeds Trinity and the Students' Union, but with wider universities around the UK on safety net policies, and talking about how the overlap from potentially those students who were level 4 or level 5 last year, moving into level 5 or level 6, or even moving up to postgraduate, what long term impacts that will have on them. And one of the biggest areas that we knew we had to combat was welfare and mental health provisions, and also physical provisions. We've already heard about the long-term impacts of COVID symptoms, but we know that students as a whole always struggle with their mental health, particularly those that come into their first year of university. That's quite a step for them academically. How do they move from potentially going to college, going to sixth form, A-level standard of work, up until then move into the formalised university work? That was something that we spoke about quite a lot at the beginning of the year. So at Trinity, we specifically made sure that we made a new system for academic voice. We partnered with our support services at the university, gave them an easy way to access information. They get direct feedback, and all of their initial feedback gets taken to our executive. That gets spoken about 2-3 times a week regularly, and then those students will receive emails with their academic feedback on. They can also feedback on the site, other services, and we've made sure to open up our welfare services to everybody for longer hours. Out of hours crisis support is something that I know a lot of universities are focusing on this year, and the National Union of Students was keen to have a more blanket approach for all universities so those students can access at all hours. Not even just as a student myself, we've seen this year in my staff role and staff roles throughout the university and the unions that students will try and reach out to us at difficult hours, which is to be expected after everything that's happened, and that's something that really needs to be addressed. If it's 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, what offer, what help, what provision can we give to those students who really need it in a time like this, where if you look at where I'm sat right now, they can be stuck in a room just themselves, unable to get that social interaction that they so desperately need. Sometimes a conversation or just saying hello to someone in the corridor when you're working day to day or you're studying really makes the difference, and that's something that is really lacking at the moment. So at our institution, we've tried another collaborative approach, a unity project between a lot of the services that we offer, and even after the announcement of lockdown in January, we've continued with that unity project and taken that completely online, so it's remote, it's safe, and that's available for upwards of 7,000 students. They can all get involved. We tried to do things that are sport based. We've delivered care packages, done everything that we really could with the time and trying to make sure that everything was safe. But we heard more so than ever that students wanted to return for physical learning. So that really is a priority for us, obviously when it's safe to do so. But in the meantime, the leadership team, the union, and the students have had constant conversations about what their priorities are, even day to day, week to week, to make sure that we are focusing on what it is that they're wanting from us and just constantly shifting our priorities to make sure that they're getting the student experience that they're paying for. It's difficult from a governor's perspective to see students asking for rent strikes, saying that they need their money back for accommodation, but being in that situation myself, I understand obviously that the majority of students will work within hospitality or retail, you know, places in the wider community that really have been affected by this virus. So making sure that we have their best interest at heart the whole way through and giving them the more support that we can was really important. And that's why personally I got involved with the National Students Deserve Better campaign, which ultimately delivered another £50 million to universities and to students. And I know that our COVID hardship fund here at Trinity has been really successful. I'm sure 100% of the funds have been delivered to students, and we've seen that make a massive impact. So much so that students...
Chelsey, I hate to interrupt, but could you wind up? I've got one more speaker left to get through. This is great stuff, I have to say.
No, that's fine. I'm just finishing up now.
Thank you.
We've seen the impact of that so much that students and their parents have gotten in touch with us, whether that be through social media or formalised email. So it's just important that we keep on with these aspects, and we continue to listen to what the students are asking for. And that's it. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Chelsey. That's great stuff. I must say, I love the passion from Chelsey about how to ensure that students are safe and that they get something from what has been a desperate year or so for them studying with COVID.